oasis in the July hockey news desert. Connor Dewar is a Leaf. You might be saying to yourself, who's Connor Dewar? And that's actually kind of concerning because the Leafs traded for him at the trade deadline. He played 17 games down the stretch and then 6 in the playoffs. He was already a Leaf, but he just signed a 1-year extension ensuring that he stays a Leaf. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. But more importantly, I think what this means for the team, because they're in a bit of a tricky situation right now, and I don't think anyone knows how it's going to play out. It's not a bad situation, it's just a situation that requires an answer. So, Connor Dewar, who just turned 25 in June, was acquired by the Toronto Maple Leafs from the Minnesota Wild at the trade deadline for a 4th-round pick in 2026, and forward prospect Dmitry Ovchinnikov, who I believe is already signed in Europe for next season. No disrespect to Ovchinnikov, who I was actually kind of excited about at one point. I think he was just included in the deal. Maybe Minnesota liked him, but it was probably just a contract going the other way. What was in this for Minnesota was the 4th-round pick in 2026, which isn't much, but it could get you a player, could even get you Connor Dewar, who, by the way, was a really good draft pick by Minnesota. Now, you might be saying, how is that possible? He's only got 19 goals, 24 assists for 43 points in 190 career NHL games. How's that a good pick? Well, because he was selected 92nd overall, a 3rd-round pick in the 2018 draft, and only 2 players selected after him. 2 have played in more NHL games than him. And those 2 players are Philip Kurashev with the Chicago Blackhawks and Yegor Sharangovich, who is with the Calgary Flames now. He was a draft pick of the New Jersey Devils. 2 good players. We'll talk about the cap hit in a second because I almost feel like that's the more important part. A lot of Leaf fans don't really know this guy. In 17 regular season games, he had just 1 goal, 4 assists, that's 5 points, mostly exclusively on the 4th line. He was on the penalty kill for a bit. I think they hoped that he would help with the penalty kill. He wasn't great on it, especially at the beginning. But that's also not entirely shocking because you're joining a team that already has a bad penalty kill mid-season, not just mid-season, way deep into the season. You've been playing another system the whole time, and he's not the first player to go from one team to another at the trade deadline and not exactly light it up. He does kill penalties. He'll probably do that going forward. He does play center. He might do that going forward, and he can play the wing, and usually guys who play the wing can play both. Defensive-minded, he can skate, he can penalty kill, he can play center, he can play wing. He kind of is the perfect 4th liner in that regard. The only thing out of him is you maybe wish he was a little bigger. He's 5'10" and about $180, maybe a little bit more. He is willing to scrap though, and he has fought in the NHL before. Does it always go well? No, but he's got heart. There's a few guys on this team, I think a lot of fans would be like, listen, I don't care if you get into a fight and lose, just hit someone! Now, 1 goal in 17 games. You're not going to get all hot and bothered about that. But in 57 games with the Minnesota Wild before getting traded to the Leafs, he had 10 goals and 4 assists. But 10 goals! That's not nothing. 10 goals isn't that much, you might say. Yeah? It's more than Max Domi had. That's true, by the way. That's dead true. That dude had more goals on the Wild last year than Domi had on the Leafs. And then he added 1 on the Leafs. So Connor Dewar actually had 2 more goals than Max Domi last season. Now, Domi did other stuff, and he did it extremely well. It's interesting, because he's at 25 years old, so yeah, still on the younger side, but how much more does he really have to give? Like, how much is he really going to improve? Junior, pretty good offensive player. But he's 25, junior is long removed. Lots of players do well in junior and then they don't do well in the show. How'd he do in the minors? Well, his last stint in the minors with the Iowa Wild, which was only 2 years ago, in 19 games, he had 8 goals, 9 assists for 17 points, nearly a point-a-game player. I guess what I'm saying is he going to be an offensive dynamo? No. But there might be a little extra that he can offer there. Even if he doesn't have another little gear to go, if he can chip in another 11 goals from the 4th line, not a lot of guys have chipped in 11 goals from the Leafs' 4th line in recent memory, so Connor, go right ahead. And if right now you're going, oh, Connor Dewar, that name is coming back to me a bit. Yeah, he had a breakaway in Game 7 against the Bruins. He didn't score. Would have been a lot cooler if he did, but he didn't. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, my therapist wouldn't have a house with 4 bedrooms. So this is interesting. We talked about in a recent video, the Leafs had a vacancy on left wing. He can play on left wing. He can take, you know what is actually good here? A lot of times in recent years, David Kampf has been the 4th line center, but there hasn't necessarily been someone who can take faceoffs on his wing. Like Ryan Reeves is not taking faceoffs. David Kampf is already pretty good at faceoffs. This could help him be a little bit better because when you know you have someone on your wing who can get in there and win one. If you get kicked out, maybe you're going to be a little bit more aggressive. But maybe you say to yourself, well, what if Connor Dewar is not on the fourth line? What if he's on the third with like Domi and Yarncroke? Well, the guy that I would push down right now, because he's under contract and Nick Robertson isn't, is Pontus Holmberg. There's another guy who can take faceoffs and play the wing. Now, I mentioned Nick Robertson doesn't have a contract. This is where things get interesting and kind of spicy. All right, Connor Dewar signed a contract at a very strange cap hit. Usually it's like 1, 1.1, 1.2, nice round numbers, even 1.15, something with that ends with a 5 or a 0, right? His contract is 1.18 million for 1 year. So we're going to be talking about the Connor Dewar extension all throughout the season. So I just want you stuff to brace for that. But yeah, 1.18 feels random, and yet probably completely planned on account of Brandon Pridham as the assistant general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And what are you up to? This is where things get complicated. This tweet from Puckpedia right here. After signing Dewar for $1.18 million, the Leafs have $1.275 million in projected cap space with 21 active players, 12 forwards, 7 D, 2 goalies. That's something that they would usually do, or just have no spares at all. Restricted free agents, Robertson. This does not include the reported $1.5 million for Yanni Hakanpää, who it was reported signed a 2-year deal with the Leafs for $1.5 million. Brad Treliving talked about Hakanpää at his July 1st press conference, and as of yet, it still hasn't been officially announced. Yanni Hakanpää, right now, is not a Leaf. So Puckpedia actually puts the exact number. The Leafs right now have $1,275,333 in cap space, which means they could sign Nick Robertson to as much as $1,275,333 against the cap. However, if the Leafs sign Yanni Hakanpää, which I still think they're going to do, they would actually have negative $224,667 in cap space. And then if you do that, not only do you not have enough money to sign Nick Robertson, you actually have to shed money. That and the little hiccup that Nick Robertson has asked for a trade out of Toronto. He doesn't want to be here anymore. So let's make a few assumptions, and I think these are good assumptions. Number one, I think Yanni Hakanpää will be signed by the Leafs. It was reported for a reason. Brad Treliving talked about it for a reason. He definitely hasn't been made official for a reason yet, but I do believe Yanni Hakanpää is going to be a Leaf, making $1.5 million against the cap this upcoming season and the next. Leafs are signing Hakanpää, number one. Number two, part of the reason they're doing that is because right now Connor Timmins is their spare defenseman, and that's not great. I think he can be your 8 or 9. Having him as your 7 is no bueno. Not to start the season anyway. So my second assumption is Connor Timmins is put on waivers and sent down. Whether he's claimed or just is buried in the minors, I don't know. For cap purposes, it's 6 and half a dozen. It doesn't matter. Yanni Hakanpää is going to be a Leaf. Connor Timmins is going to be waived and sent down. My third assumption, and this is very important to this whole scenario, I don't think Nick Robertson's getting traded. Trade him, why? Because he asked you to? No. Just, no, don't do it. Ilya Mikheyev asked for a trade, and then Kyle Dubas said no, and then he stayed in Toronto, and he played very well, and he fleeced the Canucks. He got so much money from the Canucks. Too much money for the Canucks. Dubas saying no to that trade request is one of the best things that's ever happened to Ilya Mikheyev. Jake DeBrusk asked for a trade out of Boston. Maybe even more than once. They said no. And guess what? Guess who he just turned to? That's right, the Canucks. And he got a bunch of money out of them, too. Saying no to that was one of the best things that ever happened to Jake DeBrusk. It's one thing if the team is like, fine, we're gonna trade you because you're a bum and you stink. Yeah, no, that's a bad situation that all parties involved in should want to get out of. But just like the Leafs did with Ilya Mikheyev, they're looking at Nick Robertson and they're going, well, no, you're good. We think you're useful. We want to use you here. And you might be like, well, Robertson was scratched a bunch of times last year. He was playing too low in the lineup. I don't know if Mikheyev was scratched that many times, but he was playing really low in the lineup, and he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. One day the puck started going in, he got elevated to the second line, and guess what? He's a millionaire. So third assumption, Nick Robertson stays a Leaf. They find a way to get a deal done. Recap, Hakanpää's a Leaf, Connor Timmins is sent down. However that ends up, he's gonna get sent down. 3, the Leafs don't trade Nick Robertson. Using Puck GM, the tool on Puckpedia, that's a lot like Armchair GM from Cap Friendly. If the Leafs sign Hakanpää to $1.5 million per season and send Connor Timmins $1.1 million down to the minors, that leaves the Leafs with $875,333 in projected cap space. That is a very interesting number for a few reasons. Reason number 1, hypothetically, the Leafs could just sign Nick Robertson to $875,333 if he is willing to accept. That's hypothetical number 1. Hypothetical number 2, I've seen a lot of Leaf fans go, well, Easton Cowan is just gonna make the team this season. Trade Nick Robertson and Easton Cowan is going to make the team. Here's the problem with that hypothetical. They can't afford that if this is what happens. Under this assumed scenario that I think is likely to happen, the Leafs have $875,333 in cap space. Easton Cowan's cap hit is $904,667. It's too much. It's not too much by much, but it's too much. Very interesting though, another hypothetical, Jacob Quillen makes $875,000. He's a recent signing of the Leafs. And Russian draft pick and intriguing prospect Nikita Grbyankin, $875,000 against the salary cap. If you look at Easton Cowan's $1.18 million cap hit and say, hey, that seems a little too specific to be an accident, there it is, right there. I want a do-over. Where'd all the volume going? I can't click. So maybe the plan is trade Robertson anyway, and you can get, I don't know what, futures, I guess? Picks? A pick? In this scenario, you could do that and have Grbyankin make the team. Or even a Roni Hirvonen, Ryan Twerberg, Fraser Minton, Ty Voigt, Braden Kressler, Cedric Paré, Nick Abruzzese, who all make under $875,333. Or, another option, the Marlies play in Toronto. You could just start the season with 12 forwards, 7 defensemen, and a goalie. You could just do 12 and 6. You don't even need to carry an extra. Why would you? Well, actually, sorry, the reason you would is Hakanpää is not going to play in the minors. You see what I'm saying? The Leafs have options here. The Dewar number seems way too intentional to be an accident. And because of that, I'm almost positive they're signing Hakanpää. I'm almost positive they're sending down Timmins unless they can get a trade for him. And now that I see how much cap space the Leafs will have if they do those things after this Dewar signing, I'm almost less sure that they're gonna end up re-signing Nick Robertson. I hope they do. I really genuinely hope they do. Right now, it's not a given. But we got a lot of runway left in the summer, and you can go over the salary cap in the summer. The Leafs could sign Nick Robertson to a brand spanking new contract, and then it's announced that Hakanpää is also signed to a brand spanking new contract, and oh, the Leafs are over the salary cap. What are they gonna do? Fold as a franchise? No. They're just gonna have to trade somebody before game 1 of the season. The Leafs roster for this upcoming season is mostly fleshed out. Mostly. Assuming no one gets hurt. That's so rarely how it works. But this right here, this is the burning question. What's going to happen with that remaining cap space, and how are they going to sign Nick Robertson? Because he's too good of a player to trade, in my opinion. I like what I've seen too much. Put him in a position to succeed, give him the chance that he is hoping for, or give him an opportunity to earn it, you know what I mean? I really hope cooler heads prevail. I love Nicky Bobby way too much. For now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Subscribe to SDPN, because we're still doing stuff, and a lot of people aren't right now. But we're sick puppies, and we love making sports content for you.